how true this is, but like this is something that I've noticed, that I think girls are more likely to, you know, have something called imposter syndrome, where if we don't feel like, we just don't feel like we deserve to be where we are.
I think the whole imposter syndrome, I think it's definitely real. This is something I really do struggle with quite a lot. I think it sounds really stupid and people are going to be like, oh, she's just saying this for attention. But I think because I've got a bit of a Scouse accent, I think in my head that people think I'm stupid because I've come from Liverpool and I'm not from somewhere really posh, or I haven't gone to like a really good school. So I do suffer with that like quite a lot.
And I'm not saying that boys don't get this, but I think when in situations where myself or like other, you know, female students have been, we felt like we didn't know something per se, it affected us a lot more than maybe, you know, it would affect a male doctor, and we'd stress out so much about it, it'd be a big deal. But it could also just be the case that, you know, male students just don't talk about it as much.
We should actually be taught or told earlier on in medical school by people within the School of Medicine what to maybe expect on a ward round, or that you're going to be quizzed, and them to say it's okay for you to say you don't know it, because you do worry. I do really get embarrassed and upset if I don't know something.
And it does, it's like that proper feeling in your chest, like, oh. And if you've had a few bad experiences, you're then like, oh, I don't want to go to the ward. And
yeah.
Whatever. And yeah, I do think like we definitely take criticism to heart.
Yeah.
But I can't say whether that's any less or more so than the boys.
No, I'm not sure.
Women as doctors anyway probably have to work so much harder just to prove yourself. Like, I know so many people have made comments as medical students, like when they walk in on placement, and it's like, oh, are you like a student nurse then? So it's like, if you're getting those comments from med school, it takes more to prove yourself.
I think as women, we do take things to heart more.
Yeah.
So on placement, it is still kind of male dominated, like surgeons and consultants. You feel like you have to try and impress them maybe a little bit more. You still get like kind of remarks and sexism comments.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes. Or like, I know that we tend to apologise for not knowing things, and we tend, you know, there tends to be a lot of blame on ourselves, and I think I think we tend to define ourselves by our success a little bit too much.
And in terms of imposter syndrome, I think we're all guilty of that.
Definitely.
But I've not really spoken to like boys about it and whether they get it any less or any more. It is quite ingrained in the female experience, isn't it? If you're told you're not good enough by society.
I have to sort of give myself a reality check really, because I've done the same application process as everyone else. You know, I've got into medical school. How well I do from there, that's just determined by me.
Even if you introduce yourself as a medical student or student doctor, they then go, oh, this is a nurse, which is not that much of an issue, but it's frustrating when it doesn't happen to the men.
People still think you're a nurse. Like, I will literally be in my scrubs, it's the same as a male counterpart, and we'll go up to a patient and they'll be like, oh, so are you trained to be a nurse? And it's like, well, if he's not, then why am I? Like, I'm also doing medicine.
Yeah. I don't think it's like, I wouldn't say it was easier for boys, but me and my partner will be on a ward, we're wearing the exact same uniform, but I'm the nurse and he isn't the nurse. The amount of times I've been called a nurse.
Oh, doctor and nurse.
Yeah, I've
definitely
had that. When we're wearing the same scrubs.
Literally the exact same uniform that says medical student or student doctor across it.
It doesn't massively bother me a lot when older patients say, oh, he a nurse. Like, it really doesn't. But I don't know if that's because we've got used to it, or really I am a student, so maybe to them that is what I seem, and medical student people don't know what that means. So sometimes it doesn't bother me. It's if I've introduced myself as a student doctor and then people repeatedly say that, that's a little bit annoying. But yeah.
And like, even with career progression, like obviously, you know, 2020 equality and all of that, but like women are the ones ultimately like carrying the baby, so if that's something you want, like there's still like lack of understanding as to if you do have to take 9 months, well, obviously not that you take the whole 9 months off, but like you do take like 3, 6, like how does that affect your training pathway, or like, do you know what I mean? I just don't think you get told about things like that, and it's like, oh well, kind of like have to figure it all out on your own when you get there.
Yeah.
So I find I will always, when discussing what specialty I want to do, a doctor will say, oh well, X is good if you want to have a family. And I think, are my male colleagues, are they being said, oh actually GP's good if you want to have a family? I feel like potentially they're not, but I can't speak for them. So I get that a lot.
Being a guy and being a girl gives a very different experience of placement sometimes. It obviously depends. There's some people that like doesn't exist, but frequently, so we've been to the ward quite a lot together in the past, and Rob will come in, and you might be a little bit more confident than me as well, but you'll come in and they'll kind of talk to you because you're the tool, like looks significantly older than me, looks like you're meant to be there kind of, and then I'll get left behind, or it's quite demoralising. And I think as a girl you're much more likely to just be stood around and kind of ignored, and it's quite frustrating.
As girls we should like, I don't know, like I feel like we're confident girls, but we should find our like voices more on the wards. Yeah. You just feel like, I don't know, like you're stood next to a 6-foot boy. Yeah. They just feel like they command. You can't help but feel like, yeah.
For me, I think I'm quite an emotional person, so I remember my family used to always say to me like, how are you going to become a doctor, like you're just going to cry when you see something sad, which is completely fair enough though. I'm fine, like it's fine to get upset about something that you've seen on placement, but I do think you're scared to admit that you got upset about it because you're like, maybe I'm not right for the job because I get too emotional. But like, you are literally only human. Like, if something upsets you, like just talk about it. Like, you don't need to pretend it hasn't upset you because, like it's the same with boys though. Like, I'm sure boys do have the same thing, but I can kind of see that being more of the case.
I've spoken to, there was a Reg at Southport, and she was, even me, like I hold my hands up. The first time I saw her, I did not think she was a doctor, and I didn't think she was that level. Because she was quite short, she was wasn't like heavily made up or anything, but she had a bit of makeup on, quite trendy kind of looking. I just thought, I don't know, that you should own sort of like preconceptions to what a doctor should look like. But as I got to know her, I knew that she was very, very good at her job. And she did get a lot of, she was going mad because she was getting so many people mistaking her for being a nurse. She'd really go in on the consultants when they'd sort of like try and exclude her from conversations. She'd sort of assert herself, which I thought was really important. And
yeah, you definitely need to assert yourself, especially when you're a shorterish girl. You actually have to assert yourself.
Yeah, I just feel like as a woman, maybe it's just harder to prove yourself as a doctor. I feel like you just have a lot more pressure.
Yeah, I agree. I felt that a little bit when I was on like the orthopedics, because that's so male dominated. There's like no women. I can't remember which hospital I was at, but there was no women as doctors there, so it was like a little bit, you feel it a little bit.
I think it's like about seeing, like having representation of yourself. So like when you go in as a doctor, there is obviously now I think things are becoming more equal. So when that study was done, but like even remember we did like some bias test, and it was like when you think of a doctor you do just think of male. And I think where you see representation, like a lot of the consultants I've spent time with have just been male. And I think when you don't see yourself somewhere, then obviously it gives you more imposter syndrome.
Like imagine just having to go through that day in, day out. It just must be so frustrating.
You take it as it comes, and it can be quite funny, but also like it's a bit annoying after a while. I think it gets talked about though, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, and hopefully with like the younger generation, I think it's the older generations generally. I think the younger generations.
That's why you can't be annoyed at them.
Maybe we are just a bit used to it. I've never had any sort of outright frank misogyny, I would say. Sometimes people make laddie jokes that maybe aren't appropriate, and only the sort of, oh, well, this specialty's good if you want to have a family. But that comes from women a lot of the time, and I think they just mean that generally, oh, this, you know, they're like
that's maybe a problem, with medicine in general, rather than them saying it, because it shouldn't be a stigma that you want to go part-time to look after a family, or shouldn't be difficult to do that, but it is. So maybe that's where it comes from as well.
Also, there are definitely certain specialties that you go into where it's so much more male dominated, like it kind of puts you off going into it. Like I don't know how many female surgeons. Like, there's so many stats about that. I don't know any of them off the top of my head. But like, I don't think I've ever shadowed a female surgeon in any of the placements that I've been on. Yeah. So you kind of, like you said, you don't see yourself being in that position. So that could also be something that kind of puts me off going into surgery.
Yeah.
And also then, if you did decide to go into that kind of specialty, it kind of feels like you don't have as much support because not everyone's going through the same thing.
I'm speaking as a man, but I would say just like there's clearly more and more females who are getting into high positions in medicine. I've seen so many female surgeons, female anaesthetists. I was in a surgical theatre once with an all-female surgical team, and so I wouldn't be put off from any specialty because you don't see any women there, because they are there.
Like, there's some absolute really cool female surgeons, and if I wanted to do surgery, I would probably go and speak to a female surgeon and see if I can I would probably approach a female surgeon because they're more likely to take me under their wing than a male surgeon. I don't want to generalise. I'm sure there's plenty of exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, that's something that maybe could be done better. Like, female doctors actually talking to medical students about,
like, this stuff should be in the curriculum. It shouldn't be an extra.
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
But this is literally part of so many
should.
women's lives.
Yeah.
And we have to go to a talk to learn about it.
Yeah.
When we make up 50% of the workforce.
Sometimes you are going to get things wrong, and in fact that'll be the things that you learn. You won't get it wrong again after that. So just pick yourself up. It doesn't reflect on you as a human or as a student doctor. You just go, okay, I maybe need to spend a bit of time looking that up, and then move on.
Talk about it. I think once I started talking about it to my friends and stuff, and I was like, oh, look, we're all experiencing the same thing, and know that the medical schools are doing something about it. I think especially this year, I know Liverpool has been really big on improving their diversity and equality and that kind of thing, and I think they're taking note of these things, and it's gradual change, isn't it? And I think people coming into medical school now are going to be in a better position than me, a nurse. Don't let it stop you. It is changing, and be the change you want to see, just be confident if you can.